swastika, its use, the issues surrounding it of religious freedom. It's very important to note how important it is for Asian religions, and how it's a real issue in that, for example, people will call the police if they see someone, a practitioner, draw a swastika as a holiday decoration. What's unique about this panel is that we actually have a broad range of swastika religions, including Zoroastrian, Buddhist, Jain, and Hindu. I am here as a Jewish representative because in some way the memory of the Holocaust, in some way they're representative for opening up the discussion. I must point out that on your program it says Homie Gandhi was going to be here. He could not be here because he is ill, so Behram will be taking his place for the Zoroastrian faith. Our order today is everyone's going to give a very short introduction to who they are, just so you know who everyone is. Then each person is going to speak for about 7 to 8 minutes, and some of that will also include videos and pictures and other multimedia. Then we will do a second round for people to get a little personal. What does the swastika mean to them? And then we will open it up for questions. So going first, I am Alan Brill, Rabbi Alan Brill. I am professor of interfaith and Jewish-Christian relations at Seton Hall University, and I've been involved in Jewish dharmic relations since spending a year in India teaching.
Hi everyone, I'm McDermott. I'm a senior director at the Hindu American Foundation, and I'm very glad to be here. We've done lots of work on this swastika, and I hope we have a good discussion.
I'm Behram Pastakia. I'm a physician who works in Washington, D.C., and I've been involved with the Zoroastrian faith community in our local area and nationally. I'm the co-chair of the FIZANA, that is a Federation of Zoroastrian Associations of North America. I'm the co-chair for the United Nations NGO Committee and the chair of the Publications Committee on that body. And I'm also the regional director for North America for the World Zoroastrian Chamber of Commerce. I'm very privileged to be on this panel. The idea of the swastika becoming a problem hit us, and I'll get to that in my personal story later on, but I've been part of this process for a long time. Thank you.
Hi, good evening or good afternoon. My name is TK Nakagaki. Actually, I'm the Buddhist priest in ordained Japanese Buddhist priest. So, and I also myself wrote actually the book called The Buddhist Swastika and the Hitler's Cross, and so that's one of the things that I would like to contribute in this society, and of course based upon my Buddhist view of this one. And so that's one thing the reason why I'm here. I'm also president of the Hera Peace and Reconciliation Foundation, New York, and also the President Emeritus of the Buddhist Council, New York. And so, Hiroshima Peace Ambassador, I said, or not, but I forgot. Nagasaki Peace Correspondent is another one. So, thank you. Many others.
Jai Jinendra. My name is Girish Shah. I'm a practicing Jain. I'm a founding member and past president and past board chair of Jain Center of Northern California, which is a Jain temple in Milpitas, California. And I'm also the founding member of Federation of Jain Associations in North America, which is our umbrella organization nationally. And I've been involved in leadership positions at both of these organizations over the last 40 years. I am also the board chair right now of Interreligious Council, Silicon Valley Interreligious Council, where we have all different religions involved. It's a mini parliament, as we try to call it. and we involve everybody, and we try to create harmony among religions as well as good dialogue that goes on between various religions. Thank you.
So I will go first. In 2007, there was a Hindu-Jewish dialogue in Delhi. In 2008, there was a Jewish-Hindu dialogue, a follow-up in Jerusalem. And then there was a third dialogue in 2009 in New York City, where I was a participant. In that summit dialogue, Hindu delegates wanted to discuss the swastika. At the end of 2 days of discussions, the Jewish participants affirmed and understood that the swastika was a sacred and auspicious symbol of the Dharma, not to be conflated with the hateful symbol of the Nazi swastika. I affirmed the difference, but it was much more intellectual. What really changed my attitude was living in India for an academic year as an academic scholar. When I lived in Varanasi teaching at Benares Hindu University, I almost rented an apartment in an apartment complex called Swastika Towers. The swastika decorated stores, homes. It was a sacred symbol on many of the ghats, especially the Jain ghats. The symbol was all around me, and I got used to it. On cars, on tuk-tuks, on offices, in the university. There were rangoli in front of almost every building on festivals, including my own. And I learned from that how much it was a part of their culture, and that it goes in many shapes and directions, and it's not just one overly simplified image. And so when I see a swastika in Diwali decorations or in a rangoli, they were clearly part of the festival decorations. Seeing its use in India, I came back to the United States with a changed attitude. And then I went on to write a book explaining Hinduism to Jews. But a little bit more background. 2,000 years ago, the swastika was also used as a Jewish symbol, and it decorated various synagogues in ancient Judea and the Galil, such as Ein Gedi and Ma'oz Chaim. It's actually, in the West, it's a Greco-Roman design. It's a Greco-Roman pattern called a double meander. It was used in the 1920s subway system in New York City. And most people don't get scared when they go to the 96th Street station in New York City, which has the most swastikas in the wall. Coca-Cola, the Boy Scouts, and even a Jewish matzah company, pre-World War II, used the symbol of the swastika freely. But with the rise of Nazism, the USA turned away from the symbol, and it even became a way that various groups voluntarily stopped using it. Now the hooked cross, the Nazi version, is quite scary. In the West, it's a sign of murder and hate. People won't buy old houses with this design still in the tiles. And Holocaust survivors and their descendants are scared when they see the symbol. And anti-Semitic and racist acts are on the rise in the 2022-23. And these anti-Semites and bigots still love to use the hooked cross. The biggest problem today is that every week the hate sign of the hooked cross is painted on synagogues and in communities to inspire fear, hatred, and bigotry. Now, if I'm going to use my own case as an example, how would it change? First of all, is to know that things do change. When I grew up, many Jews still came from Europe, and they were scared of the crucifix. The crucifix to the average Eastern European Jew was a symbol of anti-Semitism. A crucifix was the sign of the armies that killed Jews and of those who preached against Jews. A crucifix meant a pogrom. Now, Jews in younger generation of Jews in my college at Seton Hall or at Fordham or elsewhere barely notice the cross, and it's certainly not going to inspire fear that there's going to be a Jewish massacre after the Good Friday prayer or on Easter Sunday. We got used to it because with the reconciliation of Jews and Catholics, we realized it's not a symbol of fear. So how do we get people used to the swastika? the way which is probably impossible financially, but is to bring everyone to India. Let them all celebrate Diwali in India, and they will see that it's not a scary symbol. Beyond that, there should probably be American Jewish leaders posing together with garment fades at Diwali and elsewhere with swastika, because a photographic campaign can educate people. The Dharmic community, together with Jews, should make a point of holding joint Diwali celebrations or other times to acculturate people to the swastika symbol. And then we should work together for doing away with people's ignorance of what the symbol means. Let the Jewish community and everyone else in America see how the swastika serves both as a religious symbol and a decoration, and over time, people will get used to it.
Thank you. So, as Alan mentioned, I'm stepping in for Homi Gandhi, who's not able to come here. And with respect to the thought process he's put in, I'm going to read the manuscript that he wrote. And if there's still time, I'll add my own comments after that. So this is from Homi Gandhi. The swastika symbol, Shale Beshikaste, is found in several archaeological sites in ancient Iran, particularly in Central Asia, as part of our Zoroastrian cultural heritage. This symbol from ancient Iran signifies Ab, that's water, Atash, fire, Bal, which is air or wind, and Khak, which is soil or the earth. One more time, air, water, fire, earth. We'll come back to that later on in the discussion as to how that is so relevant to our present day world, including what's happening in this parliament. The swastika has been used for close to 5,000 years, as we just heard. And it was in the years, in the Indus-Saraswati Valley civilizations. Similar shaped symbols have also been used in other cultures, such as ancient Troy, by Native Americans in North America, and so on. I want to emphasize something which you just heard, that the swastika has many different kinds of shapes. Sometimes they look like whorls. The idea is that if you take a swastika and you twirl it, it looks like a whorl. It is a symbol of the sun. And in ancient Iran, it was considered the symbol of Mitra. And there's a whole different archaeological aspect of Mitra.
If you point to your slide on the...
No, that slide, I'll leave till the end. Can you please turn it off? The word swastika in Sanskrit translates to that which makes us all well. Remember this, makes us all well. The definition of good health by the WHO is not just the absence of disease, but the promotion of good health and well-being. The second part of that definition fits into the swastika, and I want to emphasize in this presentation how it is a symbol which is giving us information and knowledge to lead our own personal lives. At the end of this presentation, if each one of us can take away something of value, please take that away. How you can change your lives in leading a good life if you just follow the message of the swastika. The two words that make up swastika, Su and Asti, are both prevalent in Zoroastrian sacred liturgy. Sanskrit is considered a sister language of Avesta, which is the most ancient language known to Zoroastrians, and a language spoken by Zarathustra close to 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, and by his ancestors even before him. The two languages are so similar that scholars of Sanskrit could understand the Avesta when they first came across this language and helped translate the Gathas, which were the original pronouncements of Zarathustra, into modern day languages. In ancient times, Sanskrit speaking and the Avestan speaking people lived as one large group together. They came down from the steppes of Russia, and one part went off to Europe, and one part came down to the Iranian plateau, and one part went off to the Indo-Gangetic plain. But there was a commonality up in front, and we see that commonality in the words we use and the languages we use from those ancient times. The two sounds which get interchanged are the sound of ha and sa. What is pronounced as ha in one is pronounced as sa between Sanskrit and Avestan. So the Avestan people used the word ha instead of sa, and that led to many revelations for us. For example, Su, the first part of swastika, which means good health or good being, in Avestan the word becomes ha. So we have humata, hukhata, huvarashta. Good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. The ha sound is one which tells you it is something good, and the sa sound in Sanskrit means it's something good. So there is a commonality in the languages where we can see how this thing comes through the different parts. Also the word asti, the second part of swastika, in Sanskrit means to exist. Asti is also an ancient Avestan word which means something that is or to be or that which exists. So the word swastika would mean existence of good. Since the ancient ancestors of the Hindus and Zoroastrians lived together and parted, as I mentioned earlier, the common concept of existence of good, which is the first meaning of the swastika, comes through loud and clear. It's important to note that understanding the meaning of the swastika and words that make Su and Asti were familiar to the Zoroastrian religion in Achaemenian times. Now you can put on the slide. That is from Tehran. It is a necklace from the museum in Tehran. And the next slide, which shows the swastika. And this is, I don't know if you can see it, this is an archaeological site of ancient burials of the Achaemenian kings. And in that burial site, you see the symbol of the swastika is carved into the stone. There are many other such examples in archaeology. I have a book here, which was sent to me by the high priest of Iran, Mobid Firuzgari, Mehraban Firuzgari, a whole book on the archaeology of the swastika in ancient Iran. And it shows all the different variations which are embedded in the archaeology in Iran of the swastika. To add to that, I've also seen this symbol in mosques in Iran. And some of them are called the Hakim mosque. And you wonder why? Because the word Hakim stands for physician. And there was something related to the use of the swastika in healing people. And in the question and answer session, I can come back to that in more detail. So I hope I'm within time limits. Okay. So if I still have a minute, let me expand a little bit on the health point of view. I said air, water, fire, earth. If we respect air, water, fire, earth as individuals, and we respect it as a community and we respect it as a world, we would not be facing the problems of climate change we are facing today. We are polluting the air, we're polluting the water and polluting the earth, and that is our responsibility. Yes, we have rights, but before rights, you have responsibilities. And that is the message I want to leave with you. So as a community, you can do that. But as individuals, I would submit that we get in harmony with the cosmos. Because the idea of looking at creation is to see how there is a law in the cosmos. The sun rises, the sun sets. The tides come in, the tides go out. Can we ourselves live our lives in harmony with nature? Can we go to bed when the sun goes to bed? Can we get up when the sun gets up? Can we eat at a particular time of the day when it is good for us? And if we take that approach, it leads to good health. I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you. And next we will hear.
My name is Toshikazu Kenjitsu Nakagaki, so people call me TK. I myself was born in Japan, in Osaka, and I came to the United States in 1985. So Actually, I live here about 35 years in this country. In terms of swastika or the Hakenkreuz, we just need a little more information available so that people can read and see.
Hate crimes here in the city have increased immeasurably in the last couple of years, and now the swastika is being painted in all kinds of places. So I think it's important, particularly for Buddhists and perhaps more generally for many Asians, to understand what a provocative and negative symbol it is.
140年ぐらい前に、関東地域の かなり広範囲の地図を作りました。その時に地図記号を定めております。その最初の時から万字の記号をお寺に使ってございます。
It was used as a trademark, or at least a supplementary mark for many products, because in history it represented good fortune, good luck, the four seasons, more deeply symbolic and or spiritual things.
But to try and convince people who still are bearing the scars of that use of swastika, because whether Hitler called it that or not, if the last thing the person you love most in the world experienced was a person wearing that symbol, blowing their brains out, what they called it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. To them, it doesn't matter. And no, there's no maybe. That's the problem here. If in the end, historical reconstruction
万字を通して、じゃあもう少しそこにダイアログが生まれていく。だから対話が生まれていくっていうのが一番私としては大切なことで、平和のシンボルということはどういうふうに相手を理解するか、お互いを理解していくかっていうのがすごく大切になってくると思うんで、その万字っていうのは基本的には仏教のシンボルっていうような形で考えても全然問題はないっていう形。
Pretty shocked to see it here, to be honest with you. I didn't expect it to be in a temple of all places, or a shrine. I think just because it has such a negative connotation.
もう3000万人の外国の旅行者が日本に来ていただいてますし、だんだんこの万字の記号って何なのって思う方は増えてくるんだと思うんですね。でその時にこういう背景がある、こういう歴史的な背景があるということを、やはりきちんと理解をしてもらうというのは大事だと思いますが、
そのシンボルをね蘇らせることっていうのはある意味で人類の歴史をちゃんと蘇らさせてもらうことにもなるし、ヘイトクライムもどうやってできてるかもよくわかると思うんですよね。I just wanted to start with a short reading part, but this is here. It says, this is from the sutra, current sutra. It says, from the swastika, diamond-like adornments in the Buddha's chest spread the great bright light. So, yeah, for myself as a Buddhist, and then I think it's very important to recognize Buddhist, like a statue on a chest. A lot of sutra talking about this word swastika, or in Japanese we call it manji. That man means right there like actually 10,000. The words 10,000, a lot of them. So a lot of benefit, a lot of blessings, and all those, the words of the manji. So it's actually the most precious or most, what do you call it? Fulfilled. Everything is there. So it's like all good luck. Everything is there. Happiness, but then also represent a light. So it's a sun symbol actually. So this is one of the symbol. It's from at least in Japan 1400 years, which Buddhism came to Japan. So during those times, this particular symbol is with Japanese Buddhist temple and Japanese culture. So it is a part of all the Japanese things. So some of you went to Japan, you may be surprised still. And so, but for instance, this is one of the temple. I didn't bring the picture of this one, but the Zenkoji temple is considered one of the oldest Japanese temple in Nagano. The Zen means good, Ko means light, and then Ji means temple. So Zenkoji is a good light temple. So it is the from there you have a light of hope, light of wisdom, light of compassion, light of good luck, all kinds. So it's a source of goodness. Everything is good coming out of it. And so from that sense, it is a very, very important symbol, and it's not just a symbol of any kind, but it's just I consider it one of the important symbol in human history. And so is Hitler, or the Nazis things can kill all those this very important symbol in the East. I mean, especially in Japan too. But then this here you see is actually that this statue is a Chinese statue, by the way. It's not from Japan, or the Taiwanese. And then the character that we have there too is a Buddha. Buddha is the center. Around there is the swastika too. And but then the left one is a Japanese shrine that you see in Kyoto. You see, every block they have that symbols. And so it is the part of the good symbol and bringing, as a part of the culture, as the Rabbi mentioned. And so the one point that I just wanted to express is this part of the conditions in Japan, how we make a distinction between those two words. In Japan, we have two words actually. The swastika is called manji, and then the Hakenkreuz. I mean, Germany's Hitler's cross is called Hakenkreuz. It's a German language. So Hitler never said swastika anyway. He always said Hakenkreuz. So for my knowledge, the Hakenkreuz is a German one. Then the swastika or manji is a Japanese or Buddhist one. So there's a clear distinction of those two. So we never mixed it because two language. But here, when we say swastika, it has both. But then, so that itself should be changed. Although some of the speakers said, in a part, the word, how you call it doesn't matter, but it does matter from my linguistics background, because you can't call the same thing like a sugar and salt. You don't want to mix it. I mean the same similar white stuff, but it is the time to to make a distinction. But anyway, my time is up, and so I would just like to go to the other speaker. Thank you.
Swastika is a Sanskrit word, which means all is well. While the symbol is largely associated with the Holocaust in the West today, the swastika as a symbol of good fortune dates back millennia. The symbol has been used by the Indians and Native Americans, the Phoenicians, and the Greeks. In fact, the oldest use of the symbol dates back to the Ice Age in what is now Ukraine. Today, Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains widely use the swastika in religious practices. For Jains, it represents their seventh enlightened teacher. For Buddhists, it represents the footprints and heart of Buddha. For Hindus, the four limbs of the swastika represent the four Vedas, the four goals of life, and the four directions. Swastikas are commonly found at the entrance of Hindu homes and adorn Hindu temples. Its form can also be found in mathematics and in astronomy. To learn more, visit hinduamerican.org/swastika.
5 years ago, Kimberly Winston, then working for the Religion News Service, wrote an article which asked, "Can the swastika ever be redeemed?" To which I replied, writing in a piece for the HAF website, education, 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 which is why we're all here today. In 2017, posed against the backdrop of rising hate crimes in the United States, a rise in anti-Semitic graffiti, which has been mentioned in at least 3 panels here, and a scene of bigots of multiple varieties becoming more vocal and emboldened during the presidency of Donald Trump, Winston's question was apropos. Certainly for most people in the West, the swastika symbolizes hatred and Nazis. But for me, and for more than 1 billion people alive today, no redemption of the symbol is actually necessary. Part of the redeeming of the swastika in the hearts and minds of the West is recognizing, and this has been hit on multiple times, this is the challenge of going third, is recognizing that for these billion plus Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, Zoroastrians, and others to this day who use the swastika in its traditional capacity as a symbol of good luck and auspiciousness, there's no redemption necessary. We've never stopped using the swastika because of its use by the Nazis and its anti-Semitic associations in Europe and the Americas over the past century. Go to Asia, particularly India and South Asia, and you'll see swastikas everywhere. Alan illustrated this clearly. It is everywhere. We've continued to use the swastika with pride in places where Hindus and Buddhists are the majority population. It sometimes seems like you can't turn around without seeing a swastika or having buildings named after it. Its usage for us is as natural as breathing. When I see our swastika used traditionally, all I see is joy and love. When I see the Nazi emblem scrawled on the walls of a subway car or in a public park in New York City, or as the video said, at Columbia University, I feel sadness. Sadness such that the hatred has been freed by political circumstances, and sadness that such plain ignorance about the swastika's history is being mistaken for a Nazi symbol, and its traditional use is so commonplace. These are not inconsistent emotions. For me, it's easy to recognize the difference between these similar but crucially different symbols. It is cultural literacy to be able to recognize this. Other people on this panel will no doubt go into the history of the swastika, the Nazi emblem. One of the panelists has literally written the most comprehensive book on this subject. You don't often get to be on a panel where it's literally somebody has written a book on it, but TK has. So what then can we do to further education and cultural literacy around the swastika? I truly believe the words matter. For journalists and authors, any of those people are in the room, I think it's a duty to start using the correct terminology for the Nazi emblem. Use hooked cross or the original German or Nazi symbol or Nazi emblem in place of swastika. If your article or report is long enough to include a parenthetical statement or short paragraph about how the Nazi symbol may be commonly referred to as a swastika, but is incorrect, please include some clarification. To not include this information is perpetuating an ignorance that only furthers and gives power to fear and hatred. We Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, Zoroastrians must become ambassadors for the swastika, educating ourselves about our traditions so that we can educate others about how we use the swastika. And we must be vocal about it, while also being sensitive to when and how we speak up. We saw some of that in TK's video. It's clearly a sensitive topic. There's no easy way around the Holocaust and Nazis and that association. We also mustn't shy away from using the swastika in the West in our traditional ways. If we're challenged in doing this, we must be willing to engage constructively and in an educational way. Most of the time, opposition to traditional swastikas is likely done out of ignorance. We must help remove this ignorance. Those conversations will be difficult, but they must be had. We must also flood the public consciousness with our auspicious symbol, pushing away the bigoted one. That one's not going to be easy, and maybe we can get to a story about that in our comments. On a political level, we must pass resolutions acknowledging the long history of the swastika and its non-hateful usage. Going along with this is ensuring that hate crimes legislation aimed at stopping anti-Semitism has clauses that protect the swastika while recognizing the Nazi emblem as a symbol of hate and bigotry, which it undoubtedly is. In doing these things, we can send a clear message to the Nazis, the anti-Semites, the white supremacists, and other spreaders of hate that we Hindus, we Buddhists, we Jains, we Zoroastrians, we pagans, we Native Americans, and others, all of us who have used the swastika or similar symbols as symbols of prosperity, auspiciousness, and goodwill for millennia, we're taking back our soul.
I'm now going to say Jain perspective on swastika, or we call it satya. My colleagues have already told us, the ancientness of. Let's go ahead and the next one.
You're close.
Hello?
Oh yeah, that's good.
Okay. So my colleagues have already told you about how long it has been used. It is an auspicious symbol for Jains. But before I go there, I'd like to at least say something about Jainism and Buddhism. at the time of the ancient India, there was two faith traditions, predominant faith tradition. One was Sramana tradition, which was where the rishis believed in self-effort and didn't believe in divine intervention, and the Vedic, which believed in divine intervention. Out of Vedic became Hinduism, and out of Sramana tradition, it evolved into Buddhism and Jainism. As Dalai Lama puts in Jainism, a sibling of Buddhism, in his book. So we are really, that's why the principles of Buddhism and Jainism are very, very similar. And Buddha himself has said he is his middle path, whereas Jainism is a very strict ascetic path, with a strict asceticism. Anyway, with that, this is an auspicious symbol. I'll explain to you exactly how we differ in terms of how the interpretation is done. The swastika symbol used in India, but by Hindus, by Jains, by Buddhists, they each had their own description of what it means to them, religiously. And I'll come to that later on. But the swastika symbol has been used for a very, very long time by Jains. In fact, the one of the things that we call 8 auspicious symbols, Ashtamangal, has swastika as the first symbol, and the 5th symbol is Nandivarda, which is also a variation of the swastik, drawing. And these are considered 8, and I see at the bottom, 8 symbols, auspicious symbols, which are done. The picture that you're seeing is from my temple in Milpitas. We had a celebration of our 23rd anniversary, and a celebration means that all these things are drawn. The 8 auspicious symbols and the swastik are drawn on using rice, and they're made together as auspicious beginning of our anniversary program or anniversary of our consecration of pratimas. Also, this Ashtamangal is used from our first Tirthankar onwards, which means it was prehistoric. Jainism, historians have accepted the date of 900 BC, 9th century BC, but that's only up to 23rd. Before that is 1 to 22nd Tirthankara, which is in prehistoric time frames. And there is more research needs to be done in terms of finding out when all of them was. So it's a very long time. And the 7th, like my colleague said, the swastika is a symbol of our 7th Tirthankar or 7th spiritual leader. It is supposed to be where on their chest there is a birthmark that will be of different shapes and different pictures, and 7th one has swastika on his birthmark. Swastika is used very extensively by us, and our flag, as you say, in the middle, swastika on it. There's our logos also has swastika in it, and on the right you see is what people will do, and I'll talk about it later, is they will draw the swastika and the 3 symbols above it. Let me go to what all those, as a part of Jain practice, not only we draw the swastika, but we also put 3 dots at the top of it, and then we put a crescent on top and a 1 dot above it. And that is because we believe the 4 squares represent 4 destinations of the soul in a cycle of birth and rebirth. It can be human, it can be animal as well as plant life, and also earth body, water body, fire body, plant body. And it can be heavenly beings, as we call celestial beings, and it is a life of hell beings. So those 4 are the 4 different cycles, destinations that you go through. The soul will take birth in each of them at different times, and it goes back and forth. And then by learning 3 jewels of Jainism, right or enlightened faith, enlightened knowledge and enlightened conduct, you will then achieve your nirvana or liberation from this life of birth and cycle. And crescent is the place that is shown in the universe where the all liberated souls go and rest. So this is, for us, swastika is not just an auspicious symbol, it's a way we get to liberation. It's showing us the path of liberation. And that's why that is drawn every single day by Jains in practice. Okay, and next one, we Jains have been sensitive to, the Nazi use of our symbol, and so when we created our logo for our federation of Jain associations, we replaced swastika with Jain Om, because we did not want to have people immediately classify our organization as Nazi organization, because the people will not see it. Now, we shouldn't have to. There should be religious tolerance, but we did not want to. We are very sensitive to it, so we changed it in our logo so that people don't misinterpret this thing. But we continue to use in our temple. You will come to our temple, you will see all over the place. You will see how it is drawn by people on the platforms and everywhere else. And we start our prayers, start our important events by drawing swastika with rice or by kumkum paste that is marked on it. So with that, I will pass it back.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We're now going to have a second round where everyone adds a little bit personal story, talk about puja, worship, in order to now take it away from the bigger issues to a more concrete level. I didn't think I was going to say anything, but I should point out that since my student body in New Jersey is becoming increasingly Asian, and some of my classes are over 50%, the topic of wanting to write about the swastika as an interfaith topic is something I get every year by their own initiative. And the Holocaust course, the Asian students naturally want to write about the swastika, the manji, as their paper, and therefore I have a very well-worn copy of TK's book that I lend out to them to use for their papers. Okay, so we're going to now go in the same order to now have a few minutes, whether it's personal, about worship, or about whatever you want to add, beyond the historic overview.
Thank you. So the question comes to mind, why am I here? Physician, not related to all of this. Yes, I'm a Zoroastrian. So I wanted to tell you what brought me to this spot. So we have in Washington, D.C., a thing called the Interfaith Conference of Metropolitan Washington. It's been around for about 35 years. And I was a Zoroastrian representative there for about 10 years. During those 10 years, something happened which brought me to this topic. So in the Jain temple, there's a thing called New Hampshire Avenue outside of DC, which we call the highway to heaven, because we have all the different faith traditions on that one road. And something happened in the Jain temple, and either the police or somebody came in and they saw the swastika, and they were up in arms. And there was going to be a big to-do about what is happening in this temple. Luckily, the president of the Jain temple happened to be the ophthalmologist for the president of the United States. And so he made a few phone calls, and the police and whoever was involved understood that this has to be respected, and we put it down. However, then came soul searching in the Interfaith Conference. Why did this happen? It is obvious it is a matter of ignorance. So we got together and said, let's find out what is the meaning of the swastika. They asked me and I didn't know. And so did many of our colleagues. And so we went back to search for the meanings of this. That's when I got into writing to Iran to get this book. And it took us 2 years to come together to make a little pamphlet. And we created a thing called the Washington India Interfaith Network, which worked on this. And then when we got it all ready, we said, we've got to get the Jews involved, because without them, we are just spinning wheels. So we went to the Jewish group, and they were very supportive of us, that yes, we'll collaborate. But after a while, they got cold feet and said, no, this is too big for us. So we're going to wait till we get the okay from Jerusalem. And you heard him talk about this Hindu-Jewish conclave which was held in Jerusalem. So we waited for 2 years till we got the blessing from Jerusalem that this was worth doing. And then we got this pamphlet printed. It's on the IFCMW website. You can download it. And after that, the HAF has picked up on that and created another pamphlet. So we are trying to educate people. Before I end, I want to leave with one thought for each one of us. All of us here agree that it's a matter of education. As McDermott said, education is the best weapon. In terms of the swastika, how best can we go about doing it? And one thought that came to mind was the Holocaust Museum on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., where the footfall is so great. Could we conceive of having a swastika in the Holocaust Museum as people come in, so that people understand what it means to the Asian people who consider it sacred? So Clark Lobenstein, who was our head, took it to the Holocaust Museum authorities, and lo and behold, they were open-minded. And they agreed to put this information on the Holocaust Museum website. It's there. However, unfortunately, he died. I'm going to stop here because my time is up, but I want to leave that with you as something which you might consider doing downstream to continue this conversation with civil society.
Thank you. My personal thing, how I started, well, of course I grew up in Japan, so swastika is always associated with the temple. That's one thing. But after I came to the United States, actually I came to the United States in 1985, and I was assigned to one of the temple. And then what happened is the Buddha's birthday, we create the Buddha's shrine, and I put the swastika mark with a flower. And then, that's very natural things for me. But then the members of the Japanese American community, so they came and they said, "Oh, what are you doing here? This is the United States. You can't do this." And that was the first encounter of the swastika in this country. And it's a totally different things. So since then, actually, I'm one of the person who said, other priests, don't use the swastika here, because it may hurt other people's feeling, so we shouldn't use it. That's why I propagated before that all the ministers and so forth. This is we don't want to. That's the way that Hindu, Buddhist, others do, because we try to be consider other people's things instead of I pushing my own view, but rather we just try to respect. But then later, actually 2010, so it's about how many years later, whatever, 25 years later, then one of the interfaith conference, they have all the speakers there, and then this is about the hate crime, and then the expert of the speaker, from the ADL actually, but said swastika is a universal symbol of evil. And that's the way he said. But then, what do you mean by universal? So I asked the question, here we have a Buddhist, Jew, the Jains and the Hindus are here, or Native American was there too. So what do you mean? We use as a good symbol. Why do you call it universal symbol of evil? And then this speaker said he didn't know. And so that actually, make us actually gather later on. We have to do something. So that's what we have to do something. Ended up making a book for my research. So that's what my encountering.
Okay. So everyone's giving their background. It's not quite answering Alan's question about rituals. So I'm just going to go with that. Alan, sorry. So
Did I answer?
the question you may be asking is, how does a white guy, I'll list all my self-identities here, whose ethnic heritage runs through England and Ireland, and who's married to a Jewish woman, get, at least culturally Jewish if she's not observant, get involved, and was also a Hindu personally, adopted, and was not born into it, get involved in advocacy for the swastika, and why does this mean something to me in a way that I am responsible for much of the swastika literature at HAF? It is because another part of my background is punk rock and poetry. And if you go back to the early 90s, I came across a book in a small record shop in Danbury, Connecticut. I don't know if it's still there. It's called Trash American Style. And it was produced by a series of books called Research. They were popular at the time, dealing with all sorts of fringe topics. And one of them was on the swastika. It was all these usages beyond the Nazis. Up until this point, that's all I knew. And in it had all sorts of, it had all the history that's in TK's book, and this was decades before he wrote his book, although he's done a lot more research than this was. This is more of a visual thing. And there was a guy in it from Canada, I believe he went by the moniker of Man Woman. And I believe he's dead now actually, and he was covered head to toe in swastikas, everywhere. On his back, he had a swastika. He was a tall man, and it was a swastika with doves in it. And that's what kicked it off for me. And I went, wow, in this one book, I am learning something that I had no idea existed. And I went down the rabbit hole. And I found out, the Finnish Air Force had swastikas on their planes, and I think they changed them because they were afraid of getting shot down accidentally. They didn't want to get rid of it, but it was a practical concern. So from then, it's never been far from my heart in some ways. So I wasn't joking when I said before that when I see it, I see joy and love. So when I go to India, I see it everywhere. It's like I almost can't stop myself from, if people have drawn it, to add to it. And I don't know exactly why. It's some visceral thing. That when I see this, for me, I don't see the Nazi association, although I obviously intellectually recognize it, and when I see a clear Nazi emblem, absolutely. I can easily see that. So I guess I just share that as an anecdote because we were sharing our backgrounds going into this. And it's just a weird, twisted, convoluted tale that gets me here today on this panel.
For me, as I've informed you before, I'm the founding member of our national organization back in 1981. And as we were looking at the logo for our symbol, that we said, hey, we need to be conscious about how Nazi symbol is used and how it will generate a reaction. So we decided to put Om instead of swastika. And a lot of people were complaining, why are we changing our, I said, this is only a logo. And I think we want to be able to explain to people so we can use the swastika when we are with the people, but not when they just get a printed paper on it. So since then, we didn't stop using it on temple, we didn't stop using it on homes, because that was part of our faith and our destination. So it continued to be used. Back in late 90s, we created a video to educate the police department about Jain faith. And police department in San Jose said, hey, we will produce one for you. So they came around to our temple and produced a video on Jain principles of ahimsa, anekant, and aparigraha, meaning non-possessiveness, non-absolutism, and non-harming. Those three principles are really important to us, and it brings tranquility, it brings equanimity, and so we continue to use. But we actually made in that video and explained swastika and difference between swastika and Hackenkreuz. We didn't use the word Hackenkreuz, but we just simply showed Hackenkreuz and the twisted 45-degree angle version of it, and told the police department and police that when you see it, if you come to our home, if you're called and you see swastika on the walls or on the altar, the home altar, don't go berserk immediately. Don't interpret that we are, Nazis. This is our religious symbol, and we were able to put, and police department didn't have a problem because we explained to them, and they put it part of the training material, where every police officer in San Jose is required to go through and understand the Jain faith and its principles. So that's, and I just very quickly, can you go to the slide? The one in the top is what my wife draws every day, and that's actually a picture of our. It's a picture of our home temple. There's one room which is a temple and a home, and what you see behind there is Pratima or deity, and in front that she made with rice, and you see that crescent and 3 dots. That's how she draws every single day. And the bottom picture is actually in our temple. When they do a particular prayer called puja called Vidhan, and they created this elaborate embroidery fabric to put on it, and there you see the swastika and on it as well. Can you go to the next one? This one here is on the right is showing what was done during our anniversary program in the temple in Milpitas. You can see our deity or Tintankar in between, and all of the different versions of swastika around that is shown around there, and of course the Ashtamangal 8 auspicious symbols at the top. Now I will play a little video that shows one of my friends when they had a prayer at their house to show you how swastika is integral part of our prayer service. It's only 15 seconds long. So that's it's of course goes on for 2 minutes, but I just cut it off at 15 seconds just to show that that's a very integral part of our prayer service.
Thank you. We now have, after that wonderful presentation, I thank everyone. We now have time for questions. If possible, stand up when asking your question, and if it's addressed to a specific person on the panel, a specific religion, then please mention that also. Our first question is in the back. Please stand up.
Hi, thanks. I wonder if any of you have found use of the symbol for the galaxy, the Milky Way, considered to have 4 spiral arms and 4 quadrants. Thank you.
Anyone want to deal with the Milky Way question? Explain it to the
Milky is in a picture in my book. So in the actually, so there is the part of the what do you call it, my book, and with the Milky Way, because that is the universal symbol, and this itself is a very universal symbol of that. And then so we did cover some of the things, but then that's more studies should be made. We just ended with it. But then also interface. This is an interface community, so it's all the interface symbol. This is probably one of the interface symbol ever existed in the world too. So.
I just want to add to what he just said. If you want to pick one interfaith symbol, this is it. Because if you look at the Milky Way, that is how probably the ancient people from all over the world looked at the sky.
Yeah.
And they came up with it and they made their own interpretations. You heard different interpretations today. but the symbol is still the same. And so, how did it appear in South America? How did it appear in Russia or in the Middle East? How did it happen? All these different cultures are using the same symbol. It's got to do with the skies. It's got to do with the Milky Way. You're absolutely on target.
Okay. Yes, the person in red over.
Hi. As a priest of a trickster deity, things that are on the edge like this are always close to my heart. 10, 15 years ago, I had found a website that talked about the history of the swastika in South Asia and India, and I thought it was fascinating. It was the first I'd heard of it, and I shared it, and immediately got it from my father, who thought I was disrespecting my grandfather's service in World War II by daring to share that article. So what I sit here and wondering after this wonderful presentation, what could I do in my community, with my family, with my church, to help with reclaiming this symbol? Because I don't think it's right or fair to let one piece of evil contaminate thousands of years of beauty.
You can take it first. Yeah.
So thank you for that question. This actually ties into the theme of this World Parliament. The theme of this Parliament of World Religions is human rights. Let's take a look at the rights, human rights of all these colleagues who want to worship in their own way. And if there is legislation, as is sometimes proposed in the United States and other Western European countries, to stop the use of the swastika because it is a problem for the Jewish community, what about the human rights of 1 billion people across the world who consider it sacred? So I want to frame the answer in that sense. And to address your question straight off, please help us with your ideas how we can educate civil society. Here's a beautiful book to start with that my colleague has written. And there are lots of other such resources. One I can point to is from the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. Before it was called the Smithsonian, it was called the National Museum of the United States. And there's a beautiful article there about the different forms of swastika, which is identical almost to this book which came from Iran. And this was by a guy called Wilson, and it's on the website, and I can send it to you if you wish. So the point is to educate ourselves first, and then think together as a global civil society how best we can educate the global civil society which does not consider the swastika to be sacred. Education, 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 as my colleague just said. The question is, how do we make that education stick? What can we do together in this parliament to make that happen?
I think you have to meet people where they are. We've all been talking about education, which is true, but you have to meet people where they are. And sometimes I think we may have to recognize that we may not convince some people. When I brought this up, it was about a year ago, it was a friend of my wife who I hadn't seen in a long time, and she's Jewish. And we were at HAF, we're in the middle of some legislation and advocacy in California regarding hate crimes and getting the legal distinction between the Nazi emblem and the swastika into this statute. And I told her, she said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And it just happened to be on my mind. And she immediately went, no. Too much. It was a bridge too far, which is funny because it's a movie about World War II and we're talking about Nazis. It was a bridge too far for her. So I think we have to, in that education, we always have to be mindful, and I think this applies in general, of meeting people where they are. And for some of us in this room who are nodding along going, yes, that's great. We can educate ourselves and, get all the talking points, and we can all memorize it. The first one was in Ukraine, 10,000 BC, and all these talking points, which I think all of us on this panel have down. But we also have to recognize that we have to tailor our message to our audiences.
And I do have a pamphlet you can share and maybe have a discussion or something. And most of you have this, but then the people who came later, you may not have it. So we have extra things that we brought it. So if you're interested in reading it, there's a part. So that could be a good discussion to lead. So I'm going to give, or maybe, I don't know, somebody wanted.
If you want to meet your all-American grandfather or dad's memory of the grandfather, you can just take almost anything from the 1920s. You know, if it was in New York, the 96th Street subway station, a Sears Roebuck catalog, almost everything in the 1920s, and there's online public pictures of that when the rise of Nazis in 33, 34, the swearing off of the use of the swastika, meaning it clearly, you can show, here's America in 1929, and here is America, you know, declaring on public place cards, we will not use it anymore. So that may be meeting him where he is.
Yeah, it was used as an army, U.S. Army insignia prior to World War II as well.
Any other? Yes.
Yes, I was wondering if the panel is aware that there's a building in the area of Chicago where the swastika or the manji, which I think I'm going to start using, is very prominently displayed. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I'm aware of it.
I'm not in Chicago.
There's the Baha'i temple which has the swastika.
Exactly. And I want to thank you so much. One of the reasons why I came here as a Baha'i, it's very difficult for me sometimes when I take people to the temple, immediately their eyes go to the swastika, which I have to try. You know, your answer for me, which I had a question at the beginning, but now I think I have got the answer from you all, that it's educate, you know, that I have to tell my friends, my visitors, my colleagues, well, yes, this is the ancient, and of course you've given me a lot more depth and understanding that the, you know, because bourgeois, and exactly what you're saying, the exterior of the temple was not completed until 1954. However, the architect designed it in the mid-20s. And so for him at that time, the swastika still had the symbolism of American Indian tradition, which you haven't really brought in, but North American Indian tradition, especially like the Lakotas, you know, the idea of the winds and the, you know, and this kind of thing. So I want to thank you very much, and I think you've given me some tools. So the next time I take someone to the Baha'i temple, I can explain to them, because I can't imagine any group more diametrically opposed to not the principles than the Baha'i faith.
If I could just say one thing on the Native American point really fast. That, at least at HAF, we don't bring that in specifically because we don't want to overextend what the meaning is. We only want to speak primarily from the Hindu's perspective. I realize the video had a little bit more. But we want to keep it to that. We don't want to presume to speak for Native Americans, the diverse Native American traditions, to say, this is what the symbol means, because they didn't use the word swastika. It may look the same, but it's beyond our depth to do that. So that's why it wasn't included, although we recognize that a similar symbol has been used.
Yeah, so for the Native American parts, it'd be good to have a Native American on a panel next time.
Yeah, tomorrow.
And
there'll be tomorrow.
One second.
Okay.
So it'd be good to have their perspective. But if you take a look at their peace pipe, when they spoke this peace pipe, and you will see the tobacco pouch, it's on there. If you take a look at the blankets which they weave, it's definitely part of the American Indian tradition. It goes back to the first question about the sky, about how the ancient people used to look at the sky and incorporate this symbol in their own faith beliefs. I just want to make one last sentence. To the point about architecture, in Washington, D.C., in the Library of Congress, if you go down and take a look at the tiles, swastika symbol is there. If you take a look at the Supreme Court and you take a look at the flagpoles in front of the Supreme Court, as we speak today, there are 9 different tiers. And one of the tiers talks about, guess what? Air, water, fire, earth. So these symbols have been accepted across the world before the Second World War as a symbol of benevolence, and it is our duty as civil society to educate people to bring it back.
Hi, thank you guys so much for your account. It's very interesting for me. As a Jewish woman myself, I'm having a really hard time with this. You know, on one hand, I see how this symbol is very special and holy, and I don't think you should be changing your practices because the Nazis appropriated the symbol as a symbol of hate. On the other hand, when I see a swastika as a college student on our campus, we frequently have instances of people drawing swastikas and using anti-Semitic language at the same time. When I see it, I think of people who say, you do not belong here, and we will make sure that you and your people will not continue to belong in this space. And I find myself feeling very upset and threatened. So how am I able, what skills would you recommend to hold those same truths at the same time? Because that's incredibly difficult.
So I'll tell you, it's not to focus on the symbol itself. There are people who are doing their cultural world, and there are haters and prejudiced people, and you look at the people, that there are two different groups of people. Don't focus on the symbol itself. Meaning, if you see your neighbor dorm room, and they're putting, for a holiday, they're putting a flower or chalk, whatever, swastika, that's not the issue. It's not the symbol. It's because they're your nice next door dorm neighbors. The haters, even if they didn't use the symbol, there's dozens of new American symbols of little hooks and little 3 and 2 point axe heads in order not to be explicitly a swastika. Germany, Poland, Hungary, and America, there are all sorts of little ways that it's been abbreviated not to be the symbol. So if they didn't do the swastika and they did just Pepe the Frog or any of these other symbols, that's the real issue, is that they're spreading hate, and they're fear-mongering, not the actual symbol itself.
And then also, well, thank you very much. Sorry about that. My comments is a little bit different, but Native American persons going to be coming tomorrow. So if you really wanted to hear from the person's words and background, please join the tomorrow 3:30. Actually, room 253. B, 253 B 330. We will do, and also we do have already make a proclamation, also swastika proclamation. So which is also the coming up is an addition to the answer. But I know as far as
know that the ADL, the AJC has put out a pamphlet, the American Jewish Committee, about how to deal with it, to separate the two different approaches. You can download it. It's both on the American Jewish Committee's website and I think it's on the HAF's also. There is literature out there, because your question is really a common question, not to confuse the two.
Could I add to that?
Yeah. Okay.
So I just want to give you a story on what you just said. A few years ago, there was George Washington University, a student who went to India like he did. And he saw the swastika all around. And so he said, yes, I must come back and educate my campus students. So he brought a model of that swastika and he hung it up outside the cafeteria in George Washington University. The next thing he heard was he was thrown out of the university. The dean took action and said, how can you bring the symbol of hate into George Washington University? And then the IFC in Washington was informed of this, and then we brought the dean and the GW hierarchy to come and listen to us. Lo and behold, being university professors, they were open-minded, they understood what happened, and that boy was brought back into the university. So the reason I'm sharing this is we understand it's a burning problem as we speak today. We are facing it every day. All the more reason for us to get behind a panel of people who want to educate civil society. So thank you for that question.
Okay, other questions? Yes.
Sorry.
In purple.
So I had a question. As a high school student, we don't talk about it. Or if it is brought up, it's shame. It's bad. We don't talk about it because it's not good. But I was wondering, so when the symbol was initially created by the Nazi regime, was it meant to deteriorate and taint all those other beautiful symbols across the world? Did Hitler know what he was doing when he made that symbol?
Yes.
I've always wanted to know that.
It was used in a positive context prior to the rise of the Nazis, and yes, it was not created or adopted to malign the other traditions. TK can speak to this much more, but it was taken out of a Christian context, actually, in Europe at the time, and going back to earlier ideas of Teutonic Germany and all of these things. So that is, in the 21st century, is associated or being maligned or used, misunderstood. It's separate from that. It was not intended to create, to malign anybody at the time.
I mean, a Jew living in Poland would have not only been scared of a crucifix, but also would have been scared of a Teutonic cross, because a Teutonic knight or anyone using that symbol in whatever military context was never good for the Jews. So it's not just that specific sign. There's a whole history of military crosses that were usually associated with a national, military, or fascist state.
You can read my book. You can. What? Oh, you can go to the Amazon, and then you can just buy it. Well, this is too heavy for me to carry, so I'm not a publisher either. So but it is actually one of the I just wanted to mention that the Hitler has his own reason to use, and Hitler knew all the symbol means of the India, Japan, and all the others too. So he's pretty knowledgeable about the symbol he used. So he wanted to have a symbol which German people can die for it, or this is a symbol we are fighting for their countries and so forth. So you will know Christian, that German is Christian country, what do you call it, Catholic and Protestant. They are combined together with a force. Then, you need to have an enemy, or the point that you have to be together. Then the Jewish become part of the complaint. But anyway, that's the. But I think this is a very different part of it. But I just wanted to know, that for writing for me, the Jewish people, especially the Holocaust survivor, was very important. And so I just wanted to quote one of the person, the Greta Bogen. So she has been my advisor for making it. So she encouraged me to go to the Holocaust Museum and everything too. So I just wanted to. Oh, time is up. Okay. Sorry, but wait. Can I just quote this one? This is for me. It's very important. The how you overcome this. Rabbi Breston that just wanted to read the quotes. Knows a person walks in life on a very narrow bridge. The most important thing is not to be afraid. So you don't want to be afraid. But also, if you believe that you can damage, then believe you can fix. And if you believe that you can harm, then you can believe that you can heal as well. So I think this is from the Rabbi's words. So I feel that's it.
Okay, last question. Yes.
I think I remember going through a cemetery once and seeing a swastika on a tombstone. I think it was pre-World War II. Was that common? Do I remember right? Was that common? And what was the reason that the swastika might be on a tombstone?
We're in America?
Yeah, in this country.
So good luck. I mean, like I said, the case that I show in class, besides that you have all sorts of, good luck symbols like horseshoes and that, there was actually the precursor of the Bisco Bakery actually baked Passover matzahs with a swastika on it, basically saying, well, these are good matzahs. That's the one to wake up your class to realize how common it was. There was no shortage of good luck charms, packaging, advertising that had swastikas on at the beginning of the 20th century.
There's one, the classic one. It's a box of oranges.
We Jains will draw swastika on all kinds of things, including coconut for the prayers, and when you are taking somebody for cremation, a swastika may be drawn on the body itself because it's a sign of auspiciousness, for the good luck and future good path to the future birth.
Famous.
Any other questions? Thank you everyone for coming to the session, and thank the panelists for a meaningful session. Thank you so much.